Welcome to the Perfect Pumpkin tutorial. This pattern can be found in my Etsy shop, my link is in my bio, or you can use these images as reference to make your own pattern. To start, we're going to go ahead and trace our half circle like this, rotating the image to mirror it, and making sure to include this line down the center. We're going to need 7 of these little leaflets. Once you've gotten them all cut out, you're going to go ahead and pick a corresponding thread. I like to use embroidery thread, and I use 3 strands for this project. Now this pattern can actually be used in 3 ways. You can make a pumpkin like this where it has really prominent pronounced seams. To do that, cut your leaf in half, put your right sides together, and then we're going to blanket stitch down this edge to reassemble that leaf. Ta-da! If you would like to make one like this, it's a little more soft body but has this really nice stitching detail, this is how you will do that one. I'm going to take the leaf and we're actually going to run a running stitch down this line right here. Start by knotting off and then run your running stitch down that line until you reach the other side. Once you get up to that very tip, you're going to go ahead and knot off to secure and make sure that everything stays nice and neat, and then snip your ends. For this tutorial, we're not going to be doing that though, so go ahead and pull that out. We're going to start by taking 2 of our leaves and putting them together so the right sides are together. And then we'll be blanket stitching across half of the leaf, up and around, starting at the very, very tip and working across to the other tip, like this. Go ahead and knot off and cut off your strings. Now you're going to pick up another leaf and lining them up right sides together, trying to get those little tips as close as possible. And then we're going to repeat that step by working a blanket stitch from one corner to the next. To keep your final project looking nice and neat, you're going to want to try to keep your ends as close as possible when sewing them together. And then we're just going to continue this with all 7 of the leaves. Once you have them all together, it should look something like this. You'll be left with these last 2 pieces. Go ahead and put them together and then repeat that final step of blanket stitching across. And now it's time to turn our pumpkin right side up. We're going to go ahead and find a little hole at either the top or the bottom of the pumpkin and use some pliers or a hemostat to turn your work right side out. And then we're going to go ahead and stuff it. Using the pattern in this way, I like to stuff it a little bit lighter versus the orange example, the structured pumpkin. I would make it a little bit more firm to really pop out those seams. Here you can see I'm just placing a little bit of scrap fabric in the bottom of the hole just to make sure you can't see any of the fluff inside. And then we're going to go ahead and just do a gathering stitch around the open of this, just like you would if you're making a pom-pom. And work all the way back to where you started and pull tight to gather the fabric and then knot off. I then like to take the tails and work them back through that hole and out through somewhere on the body and cut to hide the tails on the inside of the project. Now we're going to repeat that process with the top of the pumpkin. This is where the stem will go. Gather that up nice and tight, clip off the ends, and then I just stuff those right inside the pumpkin. Now it's time to work on that stem. I'm going to be using a bit of satin fabric and 3 strands of embroidery thread. You will be able to see the thread, so keep that in mind that it's a complementary color. When transferring your pattern, be sure to include these lines as they are indicators of where your pleats will be. To start, go ahead and crease your pleat, and then you're going to go ahead and secure your first stitch in the upper right hand corner, and then work a running stitch from the right to the left hand side, like this. Now we're going to work towards our next pleat. To set up for that, we're going to push our needle through and up towards that next pleat. Now we're going to gather the fabric just like we did in the line before. push our needle through. And then go back in to our running stitch to the opposite corner, making sure that at the end our needle is going to be coming back towards the direction of our next pleat. It also helps to kind of untense the fabric as you're going, so that way it doesn't buckle up on itself too much or get too hard to undo later on. So again, we're going to go up through the pleat. And then we're going to weave our way back and forth to the opposite corner to set us up for our next pleat. And you can kind of see it's starting to create a really cool texture. Honestly, you could probably use either side of this because that ribbing is really interesting as well. And then you're just going to continue this process for the entirety of the project until you have no more pleats left. Alternatively, if this isn't what you're going for, you could make it out of clay, you could use a stick, you could soap a little tube, anything that you would like to use as a stem you can. Now, using the string that is still connected from making the pleats, we're going to go ahead and join up the two free edges to create a tube. And we're going to work a blanket stitch all the way up the edge. I'm using the pleated side as my inside, so that is currently on the outside of the project while I do this. Now we're going to gather up one end of the tube, and utilizing that same string, you're going to go ahead and just work it back and forth, back and forth. Doesn't really matter what it looks like, you just want to make sure this top area is really knotted off and secured. And now it's time to attach our stem to our pumpkin. To do this, we're going to start by attaching our string and anchoring it down to our project. And then we will be attaching our stem using a ladder stitch. So we're going to go up through the project like this, and then back down into the body of the pumpkin. And repeat this all the way around as many times as it's needed to get the stem to sit the way that you want. The cool thing about the ladder stitch is that you do have a lot of control on the final result of how everything will kind of lay together. From there, you can decorate your pumpkin however you like. Make little leaves, ribbons, bows. The pattern does include a jack-o'-lantern face, so there will be another tutorial that will show you how to applicate the face if you're interested in doing that. Other than that, have fun, and I would love to see what you come up with. So if you do make one, be sure to tag me.